The Moon Woke Up, found on the channel Mr. Friend, is the series we will be covering today. And I firstly want to say, it was an unexpectedly good time. The crazy plots, the humor scattered about. With each episode, I felt like I was on my toes, never knowing what to expect next. The links are in the description if you want to understand what I mean by watching the series yourself, because my recap won't give it justice. That being said, to give a bit of a teaser of what you will be expecting to see in the series, there's obviously going to be some cosmic horror and planets with faces, but it's more than just that. There's people that have become hybrids after getting exposed to a mysterious pink liquid, an infection that's turning people's faces similar to the ones seen on the planets, an industry with the goal to rebuild humanity, and one of the main characters got an alien pregnant. Trust me, it's a very fun series to watch. With all of that out of the way, if you're ready to hear my recap, thoughts, and theories, sit back, relax, be mindful with pink liquid because you might either become a monster or who knows, you might get some sick powers. And as always, I'm your host, Repa Estrella. Let's explore. The Moon Woke Up, Part 1 to 5. At the start of the series, we see some astronauts in space looking at the moon from the safety of their ship. They seem to be preparing for a mission, however, they had to abort it due to the sight of the moon developing a face. The moon then proceeded to charge straight towards Earth as the astronauts' spaceship began to experience problems. The problems were so severe that it caused the ship to explode and release the astronauts out into the open, leaving them drifting in space, which is honestly a very horrifying thought. But back to the moon, we change to the perspective of a satellite and witness the purpose behind why the moon is going straight towards Earth. It's so it can dig its sharp teeth to its surface, and the impact was quite catastrophic. But that isn't the worst part, surprisingly. The moon isn't the only thing that developed a face. So did other planets in our solar system, which they're seemingly heading our way. But let's rewind a bit. We get taken to the streets of New York on the date January 20th, 1969. Nice. Out on those streets, we see a group of people surrounding a man standing on a crate that has the name Mr. Friend, whom I'm assuming is the guy's name. Mr. Friend starts talking about seeing visions and also mentions these chosen ones going through transformations. He also claims that the government is purposely ignoring what's going on, which Mr. Friend doesn't appreciate, so he will speak out and talk about these awakened ones who will soon arrive. Pretty ominous. Following this, we then switch to multiple perspectives throughout the Earth before the moon bites it. First, we see a man who discovers that his son has suddenly transformed in a way where his face is now reminiscent of the moon. His son was also hyperfixating on drawing planets with faces as the TV in front of him was static and making odd noises. But moving on, we then see a tribe worshipping a dirt illustration of the moon with a face, and later, after getting shown some news broadcasts, we see a couple who were just trying to relax on a beach until they got caught in the impact of the moon chomping its fangs onto the surface of the Earth. Ouch, terrible vacation. Anyways, we then get a time skip of 5 years, and the estimated death toll from the lunar impact is 3.2 billion. Whew. In addition to that, the oceans have pretty much dried out, and there's questions as to whether mankind can rebuild and what other dangers are lurking out there. Speaking of which, Jupiter makes an appearance, but before we see more, we return back to Earth, in which a group team has discovered some kids' drawings, and one of these drawings has an interesting illustration of what could be a cosmic being. More on this later, because we're now jumping to the date July 20th, 1979, 10 years after the incident, and we see Jupiter again as astronauts are drilling into the moon. Luckily, Jupiter hasn't attempted to eat Earth like the moon is currently chomping on us, but instead is just watching us alongside Saturn and Uranus. Their intentions are currently unclear, but it's doubtful that they're just going to do nothing. So in preparations for future threats, the remaining world powers created the Frontline Research Initiative of Earth's New Defense, or FRIEND for short. Its operations are located in Africa, specifically near the Umbra Zone where the moon is latched onto Earth. Friends seems to be the last hope for humanity's survival, and people definitely need that hope due to the lack of resources and the fact that there's a mysterious pink liquid radiating around Earth, specifically near the Umbra Zone. Also, some of the survivors seem to be going through transformations. Specifically, their faces are turning into ones similar to the planets as we've seen with that one kid. But back to Friend Industries. They created satellites to approach the surrounding planets. But sadly, the mission was a failure because the moons from those planets attacked each one, meaning doing research or plans of attack were halted. Regardless of this failure, Friend Industries is still actively promoting themselves as saviors of mankind. For the past 15 years, they've been rebuilding society while asking the remaining survivors to join them. Speaking of which, we get shown some of the following jobs they're offering, some more intriguing than the others, but the positions were filled. Regardless, we also get shown something alarming while they were explaining the jobs. Specifically, there seems to be some sketchy experiments being done in the background, but we're going to ignore that for now because, they're all humanity has left, so you might as well apply. With that, we switch over to soldiers known as Umbra Corps, and the man whose eyes we're seeing through noticeably has a robotic arm, which the other men nicknamed him Tin Man. But that's not the main focus right now. One of the soldiers mentioned a space liquid, which they considered collecting while on their mission because apparently it's quite a valuable resource that can give them a lot of food stamps. However, the older soldier told the group to not even think about smuggling any of that pink liquid out, or else there will be consequences such as getting shot. However, despite this threat, the other soldier said that the group wasn't getting paid enough for this mission anyways, and since they're heading to the Umber Zone, it's pretty much a gold mine. Speaking of which, the zone is riddled with radiation, so everyone was instructed to put on their masks to avoid getting the moon infection. But who knows if it's really effective, because at first it was considered that the cosmic frequencies is what triggered the infection, but there's also the possibility of it being the pink moon juice. Regardless, it's time for their 2-hour mission, but before they could even exit the truck, one of the infected immediately started to attack their squad leader. The group were told to not shoot, but the soldier who was interested in collecting the moon juice didn't listen. This led to their leader getting killed, and the infected woman didn't get shot, or if she did, she's taking it like a champ and she proceeds to attack Tin Man, but he managed to subdue her by punching her with his robotic arm. Whoa. Sadly, the assault wasn't over because a new threat appeared, and it was a large, skinny moon creature that began to throw the soldiers out of the truck. And before it could bite down on Tin Man, an unexpected event happened. Behind Jupiter was a portal where a gigantic hand grabbed and pulled Jupiter away to who knows where, meaning Jupiter is now gone, and it isn't the only one. Saturn and Uranus were also plucked from space, which is terrible for the space crew because it caused malfunctions, but returning back to Earth, this brought relief to mankind because this means our threats are now gone, and after jumping 150 years into the future, mankind is now thriving again thanks to Friend Industries. That being said, the Umber Zone was still walled off from society, the moon is still attached to Earth, and because of those mysterious portals, Friend Industries had to create a gate to build around them. Wild stuff. But switching away from that, everything's moving so quickly, I know. We're now in a laboratory looking through the eyes of an individual known as Subject 24X. Out of 86 candidates, he was the only one that didn't boil once he was awoken. He also has a missing arm, which makes me believe that he's Tin Man, the soldier from earlier, and he was possibly placed in cryosleep after all these years. And despite the doctor being a little disappointed with the man's physique, he accepted that Tin will do for their plans of creating a super hybrid, which means they're going to inject him with pink moon juice while also providing him a cool arm. And after getting all of that done, they test out his arm by sending in a moon creature, which Tin used his arm to blast the creature into dust. Whoa. And for the conclusion of the 5th episode, we see Neptune developing a face. It may be late to the party, but that's alright. Whew. That being said, let's stop here so I can quickly share some of my thoughts and predictions. Well, actually, if I'm being honest, I have no clue what to expect next. After seeing that cosmic hand and portal, I feel like anything could happen. From traveling to different dimensions to just leaving the solar system to find aliens or something. I don't know what to expect. But hey, who doesn't like being on their toes? So I'm excited nonetheless. Also, somehow, Friend Industries managed to discover a way to use the pink moon juice to their advantage by injecting it into people. And currently, we don't know the full benefits of the juice, but I think we can assume that because it comes from space, the juice might make it so humans can adapt to different environments in space? That's going to be my guess for now, and in order to find out, let's continue with the videos. The Moon Woke Up, Parts 6 to 10. Continuing with the story, there's a consequence to not having a planet like Jupiter in our solar system anymore. We're now vulnerable to asteroids heading our way, but luckily, Friend Industries has created the Myuu cannon. I'm not lying, that's the actual name. And you can guess what it does. It eliminates threats from getting too close to Earth. However, there can still be collateral damage to nearby ships in space. Ooh, goodbye, mother and child. But who cares? You know, we then get told that it's the 70th anniversary of stabilizing Earth, and it's all thanks to element 75U. But I'm going to keep calling it pink juice or moon juice just because I like it better. Anyways, an example of the benefits with the moon juice is that it provides power to many of our electronics and also spacecrafts. Additionally, with the moon still on Earth, we have a lot of that resource, which is being extracted by a structure on the moon. That being said, it's still dangerous to be near the moon because of the creatures on the ground attacking the soldiers, so they have to be a little cautious while doing the extracting. Speaking of dangers, humanity is still on edge, and it's because of those mysterious portals that appeared many years ago. There's still signatures radiating from those spots, so, like we witnessed in the previous video, a gate was created to surround it. And with this gate, Friend Industries decided to send in a team to see where the portals lead. And the two individuals we're following specifically, they have a bit of hesitance about the mission because why couldn't drones be set in? But at the same time, it's better than being bored on Earth, I guess, and it's good for media publicity. I don't know, I personally wouldn't risk my life. Anyways, all the spaceships that are going on this mission move towards the gate and watch as the portal gets activated by possibly the power of moon juice. Each of the ships then enter the wormhole, while back in command, the people who watched them go in, they seem to have a lack of confidence because they all agree that those teams are possibly dead. Wow. And before they could say more, an unexpected event happened. Honestly, so many unexpected events happen, but in this case, the gate starts to overload and the portal begins to expand. And the reason for why this is happening gets answered very soon because returning to the teams in the wormhole, while traveling, they got a warning from their spacecraft's AI telling them that a gravity spike appeared at their rear, and it's apparently the size of a planet. Because it is. Neptune is chasing after the crews. This was a big shock to everyone because Neptune wasn't awake last they checked. But there's no time to dwell on that because one of the ships were soon eaten. Haha. So the remaining teams had to exit the wormhole to avoid having that same fate. And as they did, they encountered, get this, a cosmic tentacle being that released a moon from its opening that it initially had a face before it vanished once it presumably entered slumber. And that moon was then given to a planet in the area. Wild. I'm sure we're all curious to see what happens next after discovering this, but let's quickly jump back in time to when Earth was in the Stone Age. First, we see two human hunters who were in the middle of hunting until getting distracted by something happening in the sky. That cosmic being we saw earlier was approaching Earth and destroyed its original moon so it can replace it with one that it created. And as you can probably guess, when the original moon was destroyed, it caused a lot of chaos, mass extinction, wild. But hey, you know, at least the cosmic being was kind enough to replace it. Ha 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 ha. Huh. Anyways, the same was then done to the other planets in our solar system, meaning this flashback is to show the origins of why there's faces on our planets, moons specifically. Now, back to the present, the individuals on the spaceship are in between Neptune and the cosmic being, which their spacecraft program AI identifies the being as a Class 0 celestial entity, which is obviously alarming, and with its size, the crew doubts that they could just shoot it dead with their own guns, because how can they kill that? However, their spacecraft then suggests the idea of maybe entering through its orifice and causing a gigantic explosion there. But consequently, this would also kill the crew, so they rejected the suggestion and told the spacecraft that they don't give an F if Friend Industries would appreciate their sacrifice. They're not gonna do that. So they'll have to just think of a different solution, and luckily they weren't alone because the other surviving space crew is nearby. Sadly, due to the damages they got from exiting the wormhole, they only have one jump left. And before more could be said, the celestial entity starts to move and it goes straight towards Neptune. The reason why it did this is so it can insert its tentacles into its eyes and mouth. It was uncomfortable to watch, to say the least, but anyways, eventually the entity moves away from Neptune as a portal appears, which the crew refers to it as the Real. That familiar hand then pops out to grab Neptune, and before it leaves, the other cruise ship decided to use their last jump to follow it because this might be their only opportunity to know what that thing is and where it goes. Risky, but okay. So that crew leaves while the crew we're following goes on to chase after the celestial entity they soon nicknamed Patrika, and she's pretty quick, but they're managing to keep up. That is until Patrika starts releasing thousands of moons from its orifice, leaving the crew with no choice but to abort the pursuit. And as they came to a stop, they arrived at an unfamiliar location in space, but there was something familiar about the planet they found there. Just like Earth, the planet is facing an issue with its moon biting it. Technically, it has 2 moons. And according to the spacecraft, it scanned the planet and found that it has life. But more on that later, because we then return to Earth and see a message from a scientist alerting the headquarters about an issue happening in the Umbra Zone in which a lot of workers are dying. So a team of super hybrids was sent there, which includes Tin Man, the guy with the robot arm. And I will say this, the members are an interesting bunch. There's a lady with swords for hands and a man with a wheel instead of legs. Speaking of which, they don't seem to really like each other, and the man loses a hand after an argument with the woman. I mean, he was a jerk, so don't feel too bad. And he's not experiencing blood loss, so he should be fine. Anyways, after passing the wall's gates, they proceeded to enter the friend zone in the Umbra Zone, which is unpredictable and dangerous. Many threats attempted to attack the group, but they managed to hold their own pretty well. Then after a bit, they encountered survivors, in which the mother was killed because they thought she was turning into an infected, but her kid explains that her jerking movements was because she has epilepsy. Yikes. Moving on, the kid was then taken away by the robot companion while the rest of the group continued to move forward, and the journey got progressively more dangerous now that larger creatures are getting in the way. But we don't see the fight because we unexpectedly switch to a new perspective of a kid named David getting birthed into the world, and later in the future during his birthday, him and his family went to Friendland. As I said before, it's hard to predict what will happen next in the series. Anyways, Friendland is an amusement park which was a fun place for the family until an asteroid ruined their trip. It caused a roller coaster crash which made David lose his father, sibling, and his legs. And tragically, the pain never really went away for him or his mother even after a couple years passed. And if you haven't guessed it already, David is the same man in the Super Hybrid team with a wheel for his upgrade. This is his backstory, and before joining, he was close to ending his life after his mother's death until Friend Industries recruited him. That's how he ended up in the team, and now we're returning back to the present. You know, it's good to have little flashback moments, so yeah. And rather than fighting the creatures, there was an attempt to run away from them, which they're known as Moon Titans. But when that didn't work and their car got destroyed, they had to fight back. However, it wasn't exactly easy, so the robot companion returned and gave the team the idea to use the Titans as a ride to take them to the facility, which is their destination. So the robot acted as a distraction while the team climbed onto the creature. Then once everyone was secured, the robot let the Titan chase after it until they were close to the facility. Once there, they had to get the Titan to stop running, so Tin Man blasted the Titan's face, and the team got off the creature to continue on foot. Sadly, more creatures started to appear, smaller ones, and Tin Man's robot arm stopped working, so they couldn't blast those creatures. Obviously, the situation was bad, and they knew how difficult it is to run from those creatures due to how quick they are, but David soon remembers his mother's last words to him. "You were always destined for great things," so David told the others to continue while he holds off the creatures. In response, the team told him to not be a hero, but David wanted to live up to his mother's expectations and to do some good, so he yelled at the others to go while he moves towards the creatures. Is this character development? Wow, from being a jerk to now being a decent guy. Cool. Anyways, the team ran towards the facility and met with a scientist who was the same man from earlier who sent the message about issues happening in the lab. He explains to the team that people who are exposed to high levels of moon juice are being harvested for Project Phobos, and that there's a reason behind why the planet runs on the juice. It's because it's more than just a power source. It's a fertilizer. And before more could be said, the robot companion eliminated the scientist to prevent him from continuing, then it proceeded to eliminate the remaining members of the hybrid team. Huh? But miraculously, Tin Man survived the attack. he is still seen as a valuable asset, and while he's still alive, the higher-ups in Friend Industries plan to put his blood to good use. Crazy. And the place he gets taken to is full of people in tanks, likely having their blood extracted, and surprisingly, that kid that was saved earlier was there too! Following this, we are then shown a spacecraft, and its purpose is to shoot a laser at Mars, which triggered the planet to awaken? But more on that later, because we then get taken away from our solar system and return back to the astronauts that discovered a planet with 2 moons latched onto it. Now, according to the first scan, there is life on the planet, but after more scanning, apparently it was a toxic planet too? This confused the captain, and he had a bit of an argument with the spacecraft's AI, but eventually they decided that they had no choice but to touch down on the planet because their ship is damaged and need more moon juice to repower it. Also, our current protagonist saw a mysterious ship outside, but it quickly flew away, so no time to dwell on that. There's more important things to focus on, and it's the fact that they discovered a village once they arrived close to the ground. In response, the captain was hesitant about interacting with the people there, but the AI believes it would be beneficial to talk to the natives to see how they've managed to survive thus far. And if they do try to kill the crew, they could always nuke the people. Alright, so they went on to socialize with the natives. Well, technically there was a bit of a language barrier at first, but the AI soon chimes in to help with that. However, there's no helping them understand the customs and their cultures, so the men accidentally killed the welcoming committee because they shot a welcoming arrow and they mistaken it for a threat. But that's fine. They lied their way out of a confrontation, then entered a carriage to continue their discussion with the leader of the village. During that discussion, the leader tells the 2 astronauts the history of their planet, which is pretty similar to Earth in the sense that after the moon bit down on the planet, it caused a lot of chaos. But unlike Earth, this lunar event happened much further into the past, so the 2 will keep that knowledge in mind. Then the captain makes a request to have some moon juice to help them with their travels. The village leader agrees to give them some, but first he offers the 2 shelter and later a banquet so they could fill their bellies. Not wanting to be rude guests, they agreed, and while the captain was using the restroom, seemingly there was love in the air because a native woman confessed her interest to the current protag. She's meant to marry another man, however, these unexpected feelings she developed are too strong to ignore, so the 2 got busy. Which the captain was a little annoyed about because with his return to the room, he heard everything since his bed is literally right there. Whew. Moving on. It turns out the native woman is the daughter of the village leader, and after they were caught in bed, the 2 men were now going to be executed for taking her purity. Wild. And the village leader also admits to the fact that the planet actually has 3 moons, which the 3rd one emerges from the sand and seemingly moves in their directions. That concludes part 10, and where I'll briefly stop to share my thoughts. And like before, I have no clue what to expect next. I'm glad to see that I wasn't wrong with my earlier guess that aliens will be encountered. But with this story revolving around space, that was a given. Everything else that we were shown thus far, I did not expect. But we were hinted at the existence of that celestial entity thanks to that one kid's drawing, so I guess I should have, at least acknowledged that. But I was so focused on the weird creatures and planets with faces that it slipped my mind. Damn. But anyways, let's circle back to that scientist who claims that the moon juice is fertilizer. Fertilizer is known as nutrients for plants, meaning this moon juice is also nutrients, but instead of it for plants, I believe it's for planets. Meaning each time a moon latches itself onto a planet, it's injecting it with its nutrients to possibly awaken it. So that moment where we saw a laser zapping Mars, this was likely a test to confirm that theory because Mars did woke up. And this could also explain why Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus didn't do anything but stare at Earth when they were still around. They were likely waiting for Earth to also awaken. Whoa. This is going to be the running theory I'm working with, and in order to find out, let's now continue on to the next parts. The Moon Woke Up, Part 11 to 14. Real quick, I forgot to mention this earlier, but the alien's planet is called Thaylan, and in the beginning of Part 11, we get shown Thaylan 1,000 generations ago. specifically on the day when their moons impacted the planet. Similarly to Earth, some of the natives started to develop the moon infection. Then their moons with faces began to head straight towards them. But before the third one got close, the mysterious ship that was briefly witnessed in the previous episode intersected and shot something into the moon's mouth. But that wasn't to destroy or to stop the moon. It did something else. And as the moon spiraled down towards the planet, it suddenly stopped itself from hitting the ground. As a result, for many generations, the natives viewed this tiny moon as a god, which explains why in the present day, they weren't scared of it and used it for executions. Speaking of which, the ship's captain tries to reason with the village leader to stop their execution, but in the end, they couldn't change his mind, and the captain tells his comrade that he isn't mad about the predicament because he would have done the same thing. And seemingly, the two were ready to accept their fate. That is, until suddenly, their spaceship comes flying in and blasts a hole into the moon. It was the ship's AI coming to the rescue, and it managed to shoot the men's restraints. And before leaving, the current protagonist, he wanted to take his new girlfriend with them, so they quickly got her on board, which she was incredibly happy about, so hey, good. Also, with their last bit of jump left and a shield activated, they shot straight through the moon in an attempt to take it down, which did cause the moon to crash down and consequently hit the natives. This is perfect for the crew, but they then realize that they need to hurry up and get the moon juice because the recent tremors happening in the planet are becoming concerning. Sadly, as they look back, they realize that the moon recovered from their attack and is continuing to chase after them. And because they used their last jump to attack it, there's no way for them to escape quick enough. Luckily and miraculously, a sandworm-looking thing popped up from the ground and took the moon out of the picture. So they're safe, for now. But the tremors are still an issue, and according to the ship's AI, it believes that the planet is waking up. This left the crew with no choice but to abandon the moon juice and to evacuate the planet. And it was honestly for the best because once they were in space, they immediately noticed that the planet has developed a face. In response, the captain questions how this happened, to which the ship's AI tells him they don't have clearance to get that answer. To argue against this, the captain says that they're stranded in space, so he wants to know regardless. So the AI overrides the security clearance to explain why the planet suddenly awoken. Well, it's technically a theory rather than a concrete answer, and according to the theory, it's believed that the moons have a way to infiltrate planets by injecting their juices into them, which allows those planets to develop the ability to awaken. With this answer, the captain questions if Earth would also awaken, to which the AI responds that it might happen. After hearing this, the captain, along with the alien lady's help, they began to calculate the estimated time Earth would awaken like Thailand has. And despite these aliens claiming that it's been multiple generations since their moon hit their planet, it turns out that it's actually, they have short lives. So in reality, it's only been roughly 150 years, instead of it being a very, very long time ago. Meaning Earth will soon awaken like Thailand because it's been close to 150 years since the lunar impact. With this disturbing knowledge, the captain wants to return to Earth to warn everyone, but tragically, they're stranded and can't do anything. However, the mysterious ship from before suddenly appears and shoots something familiar into Thailand, which triggered the planet to frown and appear almost sleepy after a bright red light shined inside of it. The crew, understandably, doesn't know how to react to this, but the AI clarifies that the large ship somehow has the advanced technology to subdue planets. As to whether this ship is a threat to them or not, that's unclear. At least there isn't any hostile activity at the moment, but the spacecraft then sends out smaller ones to grab theirs and drag it towards them. This caused the crew to panic, and the captain sent his comrade to manually divert power to hopefully shake them free. And as our protagonist was running towards the engine room, he got briefly distracted with a restricted room that had odd noises coming from it, but no time to focus on that, I guess. He did as he was told, but sadly, their plan failed and the crew were then taken in by the large spacecraft. And once inside, they begrudgingly left their ship to greet these mysterious aliens, who are clearly far more advanced than them. And while talking to them, one of the aliens teased the captain by making him question how they knew his name is Patrick, to which the alien points at his sleeve, where his name is written. Cute. The aliens also point out the fact that the alien lady with them is pregnant, which explains her sudden sickness that was mentioned earlier that I didn't brought up until now. With her species, the process is quicker compared to humans, so the advanced aliens promise to provide her aid while the men, in the meantime, go on to meet the council. And while they were getting transported there, The captain had a brief conversation with the alien escorting them. It turns out they've evolved to a point that they don't need legs, and apparently, they have been watching humanity since they first discovered electricity. The aliens also mentioned how impressed they are to see how far humanity has grown in a short time. As a result, the council couldn't wait to finally interact with humanity, making this an exciting opportunity for everyone. With that, the alien wished the men luck, and they finally arrived at the council room where 4 cloaked individuals were waiting. This is where they learned that the council has designated humanity as a potential, which means a civilization capable of bouncing back after catastrophes. And Earth has more than proven themselves worthy because not only did they rebuild after that lunar impact, but they found ways to benefit off of the moon juice while reactivating the rift, which the council claims that they are the individuals responsible for creating. By the way, those rifts are the portals which spawned those hands that plucked planets from their locations. On the topic of those hands, the captain, Captain Patrick, found it hard to believe that the council is the one responsible for creating those rifts because, from what he can see, their hands are about the same size as his. In response, the council explains that those hands are connected to entities that aren't theirs. Instead, those entities are executors, who they refer to as taxmen. They're godlike cosmic abominations that claim planets that are awakened. As for the purpose behind why they do this, it's for unimaginable consequences. This made Captain Patrick question why they created the rifts in the first place if that's what these entities do, to which the council explains that they were compelled to create them, and after doing so, it consequently led to their planet getting destroyed. As a result, they made alterations to the creation of these rifts, and it's by making it so they leave behind scars. This was done in hopes to find other intelligent and ambitious life forms who can activate their portals, and with humanity's help, they can go further with their plans. Speaking of which, after learning about the ultimate purpose, they've been creating a weapon with the goal of reversing planetary awakening. This is cool and all, but Patrick was more curious about the thing they briefly said, which is the ultimate purpose. Sadly, before they could elaborate, there was a huge explosion and a lot of damage done to the ship, which caused everyone in the room to float in space where rifts are suddenly appearing, and inside were the taxmen, who don't seem all that happy. Ooh. Next up, we return to Tin Man, who's now hooked inside a tank, having his blood siphoned to fuel whatever technology Friend Industries has that's causing Mars to awaken. Also, the kid from before and everyone else in the tanks are completely sucked dry. Tragic. Ooh. After seeing these shriveled people, Tin Man decided he isn't going to stick around to let that happen to him, so he began pulling out the tubes hooked to him and tried breaking the glass. And surprisingly, he did have the strength to crack it because his arm turned pink, as if he got a power-up. However, he wasn't the one who broke himself free because a random robot soon entered the room and broke it for him. This robot belongs to a secret organization that I think is called Friendless, who are against Friend Industries. Also, on the robot's screen, a person appears who explains to Tin Man that the reason why he's alive, unlike the others, is because he managed to resist the extraction due to him being a successful hybrid. The woman then goes on to say that it's a shame that, despite him being a successful hybrid, Friend Industries are leaving him to rot in that tank. So if Tin Man wants to escape that fate and to bring down Friend Industries, she gave him instructions to find a ship that he could use to escape. Not letting this opportunity go to waste, Tin Man started to traverse the facility with his new robot friend, and after cornering a worker, he got the information he needed to help him find a new replacement arm. Sadly, while exploring the facility, he came face to face with an intimidating-looking robot soldier. Luckily, the power he's gained from the moon juice allowed him to fight back, so he quickly destroyed the robot. Epic. But sadly, at some point, Tin Man and his new robot friend got cornered by multiple robots as they were waiting for a door to open, so his robot friend decided to sacrifice itself so he could escape. Man, we only knew you for a few minutes, and I'm gonna miss you, buddy! But back to the escape plan. He got the doors to finally open, and he promptly stole a ship to escape the facility. And while in space, this is where he finally sees Mars with a face. But there's no time to dwell on that, so Tin Man began to activate the jump system. However, it failed due to something getting in his way. This is when, unexpectedly, artificially created planets with faces began to appear, and they're all manufactured by Friend Industries. Each of these planets then began to power up a beam inside of their mouths, which Tin Man managed to avoid each attack before finally getting the jump system to activate, meaning he successfully escaped. Now the next thing on his agenda, getting the replacement arm he was looking for, and it's located in the hybrid facility. and on arrival, waiting for him was the same doctor whom he met when he woke up from cryosleep. The reason why the doctor is here is because he wanted to praise Tin Man for being one of the best hybrid subjects and to make an offer. The doctor promises to make Tin Man even greater than he already is, and all he has to do is join them. In response, Tin Man gave him the finger. This angered the doctor, who then began to lecture Tin Man by saying Friend Industries are the good guys because they're the reason why Earth has been able to rebuild. Sure, there were many sacrifices over the years, but that was required for their survival. The doctor also mentioned something about Mars being an essential part to their plans, but before more could be said, the doctor decided to send in an opponent to teach Tin Man a lesson. And can you guess who it is? David, the guy with no legs. He's gone from being a jerk to a semi-hero to being a jerk again. Wild. Also, instead of a wheel, he now has mechanical spider legs, which is pretty cool, I will admit. Also, to replace his chopped off hand, he now has the same robot arm that Tin Man once had, and he's planning to blast Tin Man with that arm. Whew. Sadly, we don't see the fight just yet, because we then transition to a team on Mars who are just scanning the dirt. This moment was actually a few minutes before the planet woke up, and it's pretty messed up to watch because Friend Industries didn't even bother to warn the workers about their plans, so a handful of people died once Mars started to develop its face. Then again, Friend Industries were never known for being mindful about life, so yeah. Continuing with the video, Friend Industries reveals their recent discoveries of using the moon juice to awaken the planets on their own. They're also using this broadcast as a way to start propaganda against the individuals who don't like Friend Industries. For example, the scientists that first discovered that moon juice is comparable to fertilizer. They've completely covered up the truth by making that man seem out to be like an evil villain that they had to execute as a response to stop him from doing bad stuff. But we know the truth. We know the truth, okay? Regardless, the reason why they woke up Mars is still unclear, but we can assume that Mars will be used as a tool for Friend Industries, and its purpose apparently has already begun, which could be connected to the artificially created planets we've seen before. That being said, now we return back to Tin Man and his fight against David, who missed his shot and consequently destroyed the ship Tin Man arrived in. The two then began to brawl, which Tin Man's power helped him actually destroy many of David's legs, robotic legs, and he also cut off David's last only good remaining arm. I will admit I laughed, I'm sorry. Anyways, Tin Man then successfully stole David's robotic arm and knocked him out, while the doctor proceeded to escape the facility. But Tin Man wasn't going to let that happen. His body then started to radiate pink, and he proceeded to chase after the escaping spacecraft, and with his new robot arm, he used it to give him the momentum to catch up to it. Miraculously, despite being in open space, there weren't any negative effects happening to his body because his power seems to be protecting him, making me believe that he is now capable of adapting to space environments. Sadly, air is still an issue. We can hear him holding in his breath, so that's something he still needs. Then a new problem pops up, which is David. He was knocked out temporarily, but not for long, and he wanted to continue brawling with Tin Man, but at this point, Tin Man's like, "You're a joke to me," and just pokes him off of the ship. Following this, he then proceeds to climb inside the ship and moves towards the front to find the doctor, and while they were standing side by side, the doctor tells him that it's pointless to fight. Everything is set in motion, and that Friend Industries will ensure the survival of mankind. He also explains to Tin Man that everything isn't black and white, and eventually he'll learn why they're doing all of this. The ship then jumps straight towards Mars, where a rift suddenly appears and a taxman begins to grab the planet. But before the hand could escape, artificially created planets started appearing all over the rift, and they immediately began to power up and blast at the wrist of the taxman. But they weren't trying to cut off its wrist. Instead, the technology being used is more similar to handcuffs, and once they secured around the taxman's wrist, they proceeded to pull the entity out of the rift. It's pretty wild to say the least, and things are only getting crazier because in the final moments of the video, we switch over to a view of Venus, which Friend Industries are forcefully waking up. But that's not the crazy part. It's the fact that, unlike the other planets, Venus has multiple eyes. That concludes the latest episode as of this date, and it also means it's time for me to move on to the conclusion to share my final thoughts. Woo! Conclusion. What a wild ride, am I right? It has all the elements that I love about cosmic horror, while also sprinkling in charming humor and very wacky characters. If you like dark humor, I feel like the series would probably be up your alley. That being said, do I have any predictions for what could happen next? No! I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but I genuinely have no clue what to expect. My hunch from earlier about encountering aliens and that pink liquid giving people the ability to adapt to space was correct only because anyone could have guessed that. But that mysterious celestial entity creating these moons, a council of aliens responsible for rifts that hold taxmen, which for some reason humanity wants to kidnap one, I saw none of that coming. And I have no clue why humanity wants that thing. These taxmen are pretty mysterious entities because all we know is that they appear out of nowhere, destroying planets and taking planets that have faces, and they cause unimaginable consequences. Other than that, I don't know what else they're capable of, but maybe humanity finds that unknown power intriguing, so they're trying to kidnap a taxman so they could turn it into a soldier that they could use, or maybe into an engine. I don't know. That's like the only assumption I have. Regardless, I actually kind of have a prediction for what could happen in the next part, but technically it's not really a prediction anymore. And it's that we'll probably get more knowledge on the moon creatures and the people that are infected by the moon. You know, they have the moon face. The reason why I say this isn't a prediction anymore is because while I was writing the script, we got a small teaser in the channel showing us that we will likely be getting more knowledge on that stuff. But anyways, the reason why I suspected that we will inevitably be getting knowledge on that stuff before seeing the teaser is because we've been focusing on everything else for so long that it made sense to me that we will get that knowledge soon. So for part 15, we will likely be seeing either experiments being done to these creatures against humans, whatever, and we'll probably also get first-hand accounts of people that were infected before the moon ever touched down on Earth. Maybe. So if you're interested to keep up with the series and to learn more about Friend Industries and the mysterious events happening in space, the links, again, are in the description, so please check out Mr. Friend. But first, if you enjoyed this video and you made it this far, please don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment. It helps with the algorithm. And as always, I'm Reep Estrella. I better not catch you dying on me. Goodbye!